Hi, it's What If Wednesday time with Susan Bennett Fisher and Martin Fisher, the co-founders of Body of Nine. What if you could have fun in the summer with your kids? Today, I, Susan Bennett Fisher, am dressed in solidarity with mothers around the world as they bring their children home from school and receive them and figure out how to be a good mom this summer.
Yes, parents tend to look on the summer as both an exciting opportunity and also potentially a little bit of a problematic time, because what are you going to do to keep your kids amused? What are you going to do so that they feel happy? How are you going to get to grow with them? It gives you a great time to spend more time with them, even though now that the lockdowns are ending and people are getting out and about, this is a great time to spend the time with your kids, getting to know them and getting to support them. And we're going to give you the chance to learn how to do that in a whole new way today.
That's right. This is not about summer camps. This is not about what activities you should have your kids do. This is about how can you relate to your children this summer in a new way. How can you apply your understanding of the fact that there are 9 physiologically different kinds of people and that you're different from your children, and knowing that as a fundamental underlying philosophy of your summer, my kid's not like me. So starting from that place, we recommend that you consider our practices for presence in the ways that you play around with interacting with your children this summer.
Yes, so we're going to give you some hints, some ideas, some guidelines, some thoughts about how to get through this summer with a new understanding and a new relationship with your children. And we want the outcome to be that you guys are happy, you enjoy your summer more, and by the end of the summer, you and your children feel much more supportive of each other, much more validated for who you are.
Whether you know your natural number or not, these principles will help guide you in your interactions with your children. Finding out your natural number and the natural number of your children's will just accelerate and deepen the learning that you experience as a result of learning how to turn on your observer and use your curiosity, wonder, and awe in ways that allow you to shift your perspective on your kids.
So think back to when you were growing up. You probably thought you wished that your parents understood you.
You wish that your parents validated who you were or even recognized who you were.
But at the same time now, you think that you understand your children and you validate your children. And to some extent, because you're their parents, you absolutely do understand them.
Right, and you love them. And you know that you're always trying to do your best for your kids. So the first place to start is by recognizing that there's a part of you that has this observer skill. This ability to kind of take a 10,000-foot view of what's going on. And that comes from being centered in who you are, using whatever tool or modality you like. Are you a meditator? Or do you like to get a good run in the morning? So taking care of yourself first so that you can be present with your children in this moment. Clearing out your to-do list, clearing out the things that get in the way of focusing on your children and being centered in who you are. So what's your way of doing that? Take time every morning before your kids start, demanding your attention if you can. If you can't, then, do it when they're down for a nap or whatever.
It's really, really hard to look after other people if you're not really able to look after yourself.
Yes. So your physical body is a way that you can use your physical body to get centered. We have a simple exercise that we teach pretty regularly, which we call collapse and then lift. So the first step to that is just let your whole body collapse. Relax in all the muscles so you're not holding any tension. And take a breath or two. And then just allow your body to lift up to its most upright position. This naturally activates the part of your body that is born active in you as part of your natural number. For me, it's the center of the sternum. For Martin, it's the top of the head. Depending on your natural number, the region of your body, anywhere from your low abdomen all the way up to the top of your head or your sacrum to the top of your head, that part of your body will naturally become active because it will lift you into alignment. When we're in alignment, we have better spiritual flow, better energetic flow, and better presence. So if you're having a rough moment, collapse and then lift And you'll immediately shift back into a more present state. You can use that anytime, and you can do it just a little bit. And
you can do it in front of your children too. And
yes, you can teach your kids to do it.
Depending how old your children are, they may say, "Mummy, mummy, what are you doing?" Or if they're teenagers, they may just give you a strange look and mutter and walk away.
Yes.
The thing here, and we've said it before, and I want to reinforce it, is your children are not like you. They may or may not be like your parents, but they are not like you, which means that how you treat them is going to be important to know that you might want to be treated some way, but that's not necessarily how they'd want. And more importantly, when they do something, if you were doing that same thing, it would mean something very, very different than it probably means to them.
Yes. So again, first step is observer. Then my favorite skills to apply with children, I have 3 of my own, are wonder, curiosity, and awe. So when your observer is active, you can observe your children's behavior and quiet the voices of judgment, quiet the voices of shoulds and coulds, of the way you should parent, and use your curiosity to dig into what's going on without judging. And that's really an important skill to develop as a parent.
And it's tough, even now, when we've just said this, to say, well, I'm sure you don't think you judge. All of us have this little judging voice that sort of says, well, if.
And let me define judgment as we're talking about it. Judgment is putting yourself or another person above or below, or an action above or below another action. So it's the laying of the scales and giving something more value than something else. And this takes you into a place of evaluating the merit and the value of you, yourself, your beliefs, and your children. So understanding that, of course, those things are there and they're real. Choosing the value and choosing with consciousness is a really important part of being a good parent. Yes. Not just taking the things that you were taught to believe and laying them on your children, but examining those beliefs and then looking for, is that belief going to serve my child?
We grow up, and our natural number is very much about our nature. Your parents are not like you. So they have nurtured you to the best of their ability, we hope. And that nurture has sat on top of your nature. Now you have your nature, you have their nurture, and your best person really wants to give the best to your children. And your nature and your nurture is still probably going to mislead you into how you evaluate what your children are doing.
Right. So when your kid's throwing a tantrum, rather than judging your kid or feeling the judgment of the community around you for the fact that your kid has absolutely lost it, it's really important to get your curiosity going and say, hey, what's going on here? What's the need that's not met here? What's going on for this child?
And their needs are probably not the same needs that you would have if you were
in that situation.
Responding that way. And when you were a child, you might have responded in a very different way to the same situation, or you might have responded the same way to a very different situation. So the curiosity and the wonder and the awe is really important. And one of the first things you can do is watch your children. Because your children, just like you, just like us, we all move from our natural number center. Mm-hmm. So if you teach them the little claps, watch what happens when they sit up. Do they sit up from the top of the head? Do they seem to be sitting up and be very grounded? These are little hints that can tell you how do they would like to be at least reacted to. Because, or supported, or both. Or more importantly, the word we really love is validated.
Yes. Validating the reality of your children is what makes them whole and healthy. And in understanding their natural number and how that's informing them and how that shapes their values and their beliefs and their skills and their gifts is critical to being able to validate and support your children.
And that's a very specific set of things that we teach. And if you are identified and your children get identified, we can spend a long period of time helping you understand what it is that your children need explicitly. But for this presentation, let's give you a more broad brush stroke. What is the kind of things that different kinds of people need?
Yes, and I think we can use examples. My youngest daughter, she's a 2, and she used to get really upset at me. She would throw a big fit, a big tantrum, and I was like, "Oh my God!" And it usually happened, when we were out and about, and I didn't at the time understand what to do about it. And I was publicly shamed by this woman once when my daughter was throwing. She came over to me and said, "How could you teach your daughter?" Let your daughter behave that way. I'm like, Jesus, so we publicly shame each other. It's a terrible, terrible thing. I was traumatized by that. But over time, what I learned, especially after I learned that she had natural number 2, was I hadn't met some very critical need. And the number 1 need for her was actually feeding her before she got too hungry to be willing to eat.
And what we now know is that as a natural number 2, she always anticipates other people's needs. So she wasn't upset that she was hungry as much as she was upset that no one had actually anticipated her needs. And so common sense potentially might say, gosh, she's upset because she's hungry. And the answer is, well, yes, but not really. That wasn't the core issue.
Yeah, she was upset at me because I hadn't figured out what she needed. Yeah. She always knew what I needed, even as a child. So the skills that are related to the natural numbers start to begin to develop. And along with that come the disappointments, especially for natural numbers 2, 4, and 8. They become very disappointed with their caregivers when their caregivers don't figure out or anticipate their bodily needs, their emotional needs, their way of their interactive needs.
And their safety needs, the needs around keeping them safe and
trusted,
understanding and respecting and enforcing where necessary the boundaries.
And so disappointment, if you see disappointment developing in your children, it's as one of their primary triggers, it could be that they're a natural number 2, 4, or 8.
Certainly if they come across as being very body-based, if they're aware of their bodies and if they actually get input from their bodies. Or sometimes perhaps if they get input from how do they want to feel about things. There's 2 or 3 different natural numbers that make decisions based on how they feel about things rather than other criteria. And if you make decisions based on something and your children make decisions based on something else, that's a major, major case and place for misunderstanding and miscommunication.
Yeah, and that's something to pay attention. Also, it's about pace. Each of the natural numbers operates at a different pace. They make decisions at a different pace because they are using different criteria.
And you know your children. I mean, one of the things about being a parent is that you get to understand and know your children. So if we say to you, some children move at different pace, and you can say, yeah, my child's, one of them's really, really quick, and the other one, yeah, they're a little bit more meandering. Well, yes, they are, because they're different natural numbers.
Yes.
And so
they have different needs.
Yes.
And so they need to be treated differently.
And you can't expect the same situation to come out the same way for both. Say you've got one of each kind of like that. And so the ability to understand why, and not just how your children are different, gives you some insight into how to support them,
what to do,
and what to do.
Yeah.
Prime example, again, my natural number is natural number 5, and I'm all about fairness. And when I was growing up, I have a younger sister, and she was treated differently from me because all the stuff that I'd done, I was kind of leading the way. But there were some things that my parents insisted that she couldn't do because she was a young woman. That didn't seem fair to me. But I can see their point of view. So understanding, for example, if one of your children wants fairness and the other one of your children doesn't really care about fairness or really wants something else, again, your children are different than you.
And it's so important to validate what is important. So if you've got a 5 kid, fairness is a driver for them. And if a situation isn't fair, if you give that favoritism, the 5 will be upset and you will unvalidate their need for fairness. Same thing with if you have a 7 kid, not validating their need for them to explore their curiosity, to push boundaries, to
change when they're done,
change things when they're done, just not to finish things, is really an important part of supporting a natural number 7
and
kid.
Just even that phrase, not to finish things, is full of loaded preoccupation because they do finish. When they're done, they're done. They consider themselves finished. Yes. Doesn't mean that you'll think they're finished, but when they are complete, they are complete.
Yes, and not putting a judgment on our kids.
Yeah. And it's really, really hard because, again, we were brought up with nature and our parents' nurture, and your parents had no idea that you weren't like them. Really.
Right. In fact, parents love to say, "Oh, this is how my daughter or my son is so like me."
Yes.
And the reality is, they may behave similarly to you because A, they learn it from you. They've seen that behavior works for you, so they behave that way to please you or to keep you from getting angry or whatever it is. But if you really get to the underlying reasons or for how they're behaving, especially when they're not doing what you want them to do,
Their motivations are really,
really different. Really different, and that's so important. And what they need, like sixes need to run free. They need to be able to change their schedules. They need to be able to be active, be alive, to feel the aliveness of life. Especially kids, they just love to run. The sixes just love to run. Don't really like to rest.
And so
Hated naps my whole life.
So your relationship with your children is enhanced and challenged by the differences in the natural numbers and the dynamics of those natural numbers within the relationships. And that's the next part of this conversation is your relationship with your child. It's good, it's bad. Life goes on and nothing's ever perfect. However, there are some children that really want a relationship with you in a different way than perhaps you are even thinking that they want or even feel that you can give to them.
Or vice versa.
Or vice versa. And this is where you as an adult get the chance to practice your mirroring skills. Because if one of your children really likes eye contact and really likes to spend time with you and likes to cuddly and be close to you, and another one just doesn't want to care and is just leave me alone because I'm happy doing my thing, I'll be happy playing in the sand on my own for hours on end, you can have a great relationship with both of them without ever doing anything other than validating their wishes for who they are.
Right. So this is part of your observer skills. First, notice, how does your child use their eyes? Do they look at you? Do they hold eye contact? When they look at you, is there a state change in their eyes? When they become actively connected with you, is there a state change? So in ones, twos, threes, and fours, there is a state change in the eyes.
They're giving you a gift with their eyes.
They are, and they want to connect. And the longer you can hold eye contact with them, the happier they are. Because something happens in the connection. Either you engage or you show up or you show who you are. And they want to see you. They want you to be in your authentic self.
And that may require some vulnerability that you're not used to giving.
Yes.
Again, most of us have parents that perhaps weren't as able to give that vulnerability. And this is a part of everyone's ability to grow. And I think that's, I hope at least, what most of us are aiming for. If we're not just being great parents to our children, then maybe as we grow, we can be even better parents to our children.
Absolutely. And the first step is knowing how do you use your eyes?
Yes.
Do you like eye contact? Do you engage? Is there a state change that happens?
And be okay with your children perhaps not needing the same eye contact that you do.
Right.
But at the same time, it's okay to say, look, I like eye contact. Doesn't mean that you have to make eye contact, but I like it. And I can hear you better if you give me eye contact. And some people's children will be like, yeah, me too. Others will be like, well, that's weird.
Oftentimes, we're taught that not giving eye contact is disrespectful. And that's a really great example of the judgment coming into the conversation around eye contact. The reality is half the people in the world do something with their eyes to create eye contact, and they really need you to look them in the eye. And then the other half use their eyes to see things, to observe, to take in information,
yes.
but not to build relationship.
And if you've got a child that sometimes looks like they're not paying attention, they just give you kind of a blank look, then they actually probably are paying attention. They might not be, but one of the natural numbers, the more they're paying attention, the least it looks like they're paying attention. So
right.
Kids at school, it's like the teacher says, he's never paying attention, but still gets good grades. Well, perhaps they are paying attention. It's just hard to tell.
Right, and that's the judgments. It's like if you put a mold that we're all the same, and if I'm not doing well at something, it's because I'm willfully not working at that. That kind of thinking really gets us into trouble.
Yes.
There are some children that go to school because they love the social aspect. There's some kids who go because they love to learn. There's some kids that hate school. And that actually really does relate to our natural number and then how we're received in that environment. What kind of teacher? My natural number 7 daughter thrived when she had natural number 5 teachers, because they gave her a context and they gave her information, they gave her understanding in a way that was exciting to her.
Because as most kids now going back to school after the summer, this summer gives you the chance to get this relationship with your children to the place where you understand each other better and you can support them after they go back to school. Because
and what they need.
School is really hard for kids.
Yes.
It's built for, I believe, the natural number 5s and the natural number 7s, where they just sit and absorb, which is what they're really, really good at. And the other natural numbers really suffer at school.
Well, I mean, that also depends on the school and the teacher, right? So my daughter, Nina, had the best teacher in the 2nd grade. The teacher was a 4, and my daughter's a 2. And that 4 nurtured my daughter in this beautiful way that brought her out and gave her confidence. So it's about the matchup between the teacher and the kid. And one teacher will work really well for another, but not necessarily for a different kind of kid.
And you don't get a lot of choice in those matters.
You don't.
So all you can do is help your children understand that their teachers are different than them. And as they grow up, as they become more mature and able to talk, ask for themselves, it's okay to sort of have a adultish conversation with their teachers. If they can tell their teachers gently and respectfully how they would like to learn.
Only for a 5, but well, those things actually really work. As it turns out, gentleness is a really important feature.
Gentleness and honoring.
Yes.
And vulnerability.
Yes.
It's okay.
And connection.
And so part of the wonder and part of the curiosity and part of the outcome of this summer could be that your children get to be a lot more comfortable
with who they are.
Once you can validate them for their natural number, who they truly are.
They can learn to ask for what they need. Because that's a really hard skill. We don't really have any permission about asking for what we need in a way that, and understanding that others are different, understanding that what they need is different, and how you should ask is different. That these are all skills that come from this curiosity combined with the understanding that we're the ways in which we are different in terms of, and then how that translates into needs.
Yes. And then, so let's move on to the awe part of the curiosity. Humanity is amazing.
Your kids are amazing.
Yes.
They're so beautiful and so innocent and so full of life and readiness. And this is about nurturing all of that. That readiness and that gorgeous beauty.
Letting them nurture you back. Because you and they have hopefully a lifetime of connection. And as you grow and as you validate them, they will be able to validate you. Having them understand that you're different than they are, that your needs are different than their needs, will open the possibility to all sorts of fun conversations and family get-togethers and family growth.
And it opens you to receive the gift of each other. Because we aren't like anyone in our family, everyone adds to your ability to perceive, your ability to love, to your ability to know what's happening in the moment. Because each of the numbers, when active, allow us essentially to tap a different frequency of information. You're a master at tapping your frequency of information through your natural number, through that part of your body.
Even if you've never been identified, even if that doesn't make a lot of sense to you, your body's doing it all the time.
Right. But it's not doing what the other 8 do. So you can learn that. That's an amazingly powerful skill. And talk about expanding perspective. It's kind of the follow-on step for after you get identified, is learning about the different 8, the other 8, and learning how to step into their world, at least in a small way. That's a tremendous parenting skill set. Now, and that's down the line. For now, you're just observing. You're just looking. You're looking at your children with curiosity, wonder, and awe is important because awe allows you to open your perspective to the beauty of your children. When you look at something, if you're judging and thinking, you are not able to truly see what's happening there. The state of awe and wonder, it's like, it opens you to seeing things through a different lens, a different perspective, without that judging voice or the attachment to how that child should be behaving.
And so the final attribute, the final test to make this really work is courage.
Yes.
Because some of this stuff is hard. Especially if you start talking to your children go to school, Mummy, I went to school and they said this is silly. Well, we've worked with 7,500 people. We've worked with hundreds of families.
People all over the world, all cultures, races, and ethnicities.
This stuff is real.
Everyone has a natural number. And the fundamental difference is along the line of a natural number are similar and between are outrageously different.
Yes, you know that you're really deep down, you know that your children are not like you. You're not like your spouse. You're not like your parents. This is the chance, with courage, to change your relationships, to change your relationships with yourself, to be validated for who you really are.
At your deepest, most whole level of self. The place where it's below the nurture that is and will always be whole.
And that validation throughout the family is a glue like no other.
Yep.
The ability for us as human beings to connect to each other in this way, it's only just starting to percolate into the world, and we're doing what we can to move it forward as fast as we can.
We need your help. We need you to share this with other parents. We need you to tell your friends about Body of Nine, about your natural number, about what it's like to learn if you've been identified. If you haven't been identified, we need you to come get identified.
And you will not regret it, we promise you.
We promise that.
Quite literally guarantee your happiness.
Yeah. That is our promise and guarantee that you will be seen, you'll be validated, and you will begin, it's a springboard for what's coming next in your life.
This will change your family dynamic in ways that we can only describe as being amazing.
Yeah.
And if enough people start to be validated, if enough people start to understand who they are and feel honored and seen for who they are,
rather than being competing with each other. Yeah. Most of the time we go to competition like, oh, if only they could be better. Well, I'm going to show them how to be better. No, it's about that validation that like who you are is important. You're a gift, and it is so critical that you show up that way.
And if you're starting to think, well, yeah, it's time to change the world, and you want to be part of that change the world movement, come join us.
Absolutely. Yes. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for listening. Have a great summer, and hopefully we'll be in touch with each other.
Yes.